Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon when you're watching this webinar. Once again, this is Dave Nagel. Very excited to come together next week with my friends and colleagues from Carlisle School District. This final webinar in the series is going to focus on unwrapping the standards or unwrapping ELTs. I'm going to guide quickly through a few examples, and then depending upon where your team is, most likely we're going to be looking at unwrapping the essential learning targets, but I want to highlight the importance of making sure those are linked directly to the standards they originated from. As always, you've got my email, my cell phone number. Really appreciated some of the questions that have already come in, and I'm going to jump right in now. So our success criteria is starting off, why are unwrapping standards or unwrapping ELTs a critical step in the assessment process, and that deconstructing a standard or an ELT comes from identifying the concepts or skills with the learning targets for the students, and then we must be able to determine the accurate rigor level for the standard or the ELT you are teaching. Hopefully you have your working handout in front of you. This one I'm going to guide us a little bit into the slides that I've sent on to Bryce for the group, as well as the Google folder that I'm going to highlight everybody have a chance to do some practice work at the very end. So any quality assessment really comes down to these 3 points. What's my purpose? And then when do I have enough evidence to make an inference? We've talked about that several times. Well, unwrapping the standards, the ELTs, helps us identify the purpose for that assessment. So that way we're really focusing on the inferences we're gathering for the most important elements that we are to be teaching and guiding our students towards. So I'm going to walk us through a few examples. So here's just taking an actual reading for informational standard. First thing we would always do is identify the essential skills or the verbs. And in this one, it's identify. And then we determine what are the concepts or the nouns, the main purpose, the text, the author. They all have to understand what an explanation is, a description is. So here, what you see I've done first is I've pulled out all the nouns or the noun phrases. And I've intentionally highlighted, for example, not just purpose, but main purpose, main idea, central idea. And then I've also highlighted, if you notice here, the words explain and describe. Really, that means the students will have to understand what an explanation and a description is. Now, certainly, by second grade, they might know what it is, and we might have concepts that we just assume our students already know, but we want to just take what's in the standard or the ELT that we'll be working from and pull out what are the nouns. Then we have to pull out what are the skills, and if you look here, what the students have to do with this particular standard is identify the main purpose of a text, but then also identify what the author wants to explain, describe, or answer within that text. Then what we do, and we're going to spend some more time on this, just as an overview, we're going to go into the Hess Cognitive Rigor Matrix. This might be new for some, review for others. And we're going to use first, what was the Bloom's taxonomy verb, to then guide us across, as I highlighted in the last webinar, what level of rigor or depth is it written at. So we have to look at the context that the standard or the ELT that we pulled it from is written at. And for both of these, it really comes out to be a level 2. Now, I want to highlight a couple real important examples. So I pulled out a 4th grade example from one of your ELTs, because this is where we likely will guide the teams to unwrap. But what you can see here, and what the 4th grade team did intentionally, was line up their ELTs with the standard it was derived from. And so you can see here, we're going to just take the same exact standard, refer multiple details from a text, examples, inferences, and they're going to have to draw inferences. So we're going to go back to the same aspect of unwrapping. Pull out the nouns or the noun phrases, multiple details, multiple examples, text, inferences, and then the students will have to refer to multiple details and multiple examples in the text, and they'll have to draw inferences from the text. So what you can see here is how this ELT was written. It's very easy to pull those specific concepts and skills. Some of the ELTs, being very honest, some teams might have to go back and look at the standards that they used and make sure that we have the level of rigor written from the standards into the ELT so we can have something that's measurable. And then we'll go to our cognitive rigor matrix, and then this one ends up being a level 2. And again, we're going to practice that together, but at least this gets us a little bit of a head start. I wanted to show a science example from a standard and then one of your science examples from one of your 8th grade teams. This particular example, we have 4 skills, and then what you see here, we have our concepts, arguments, evidence, gravitational interactions, masses, interacting objects, claim, written all those on the left-hand side. Now when we add our skills, they have to construct arguments to present the claim, They have to present arguments to support the claim and use evidence to support the claim, that gravital interactions are attractive and depend on the masses of interacting objects. So that's how we did it from a standard. I'm going to use now your science ELT that's written here from the ones I pulled right from the ones you put together. And we'll do the same type of process. We're going to pull out from the concepts, the left-hand side, then we're going to pull out our verbs. And in this particular example, they have to relate how plate tectonics impacts people with various economic backgrounds or various geographic backgrounds. Explain how plate tectonics does the same thing. Some standards or ELTs like this, it seems like we're rewriting the standard. Well, not exactly. But I would imagine, as we've worked with all of our students on some degree with the standards we work with, some will be able to relate how they process and impact people with economic backgrounds and geographic backgrounds, but they're having trouble explaining it. So this creates the roadmap for when we write our assessment. We make sure we have enough evidence to gather an inference that students can meet the concepts and skills, and then at the accurate rigor level. So what I want to guide and coach some teams on, this might be where we're not going to abandon our ELTs, but we might need to make some tweaks to some of them. Like just to show you here is a 5th grade ELT that I pulled. I didn't unwrap this one in this example. Determine theme of a story and support the theme using evidence to show how characters develop. Then I went into the standards, and it's very easy to see exactly the standard that they pulled it from. Didn't keep everything. So that's an important element. That the words like determine or convey are the ones that we want to keep. It's those skills that are essential, because those skills are going to drive when we're using our depth of knowledge to determine the accurate rigor level. So what I'm going to ask, just one small task, is that everybody take some time to unwrap at least one ELT or perhaps a standard that you're deriving those ELTs from relevant to the assessment you'll be working on February 1st and 2nd. And so what I've done is I've created just a little document, looks just like this, where you'll pull out the full verbiage of the standard or the ELT, you'll have your nouns, your skills, and your DOK. And I've created folders for each one of the schools, elementary, Hartford, high school, and the middle school. And then when you go in there, I just happen to pull up the Hartford example. When you go in there, you'll see your name with a particular document, and then you'll have it look just like this. And I'm just asking everybody to practice. Just practice one. It will give me a chance to just jump in there and give any feedback and kind of see where we go that morning. As I've said from day one, the purpose of these webinars and any of the pre-work is to make those days as productive as possible, as there's still certainly some new learning that will happen. So just take your standard or your ELT, pull out your nouns, your skills, and then the depth of knowledge document, which I've included in the Google folder as well. And if everybody could do that by January 31st, certainly the sooner the better, but at least by the night before, hopefully that will give me a chance to go in there and give any feedback and see where everybody is heading into Wednesday, February 1st. An important element also is that the acid test. When 2 or more teachers or educators come up with the same level of context, rigor, and agreement of the skills, etc., when unwrapping the same ELT or the same standard. That's the key. So we have to be looking at these with the same level of rigor and accuracy, which is why I think some of the ELTs we'll see are ready to go. Some might need a tweak or two just because we haven't created the level of specificity from the standards. So that way 2 adults unwrapping them at the same time would come up with the same context and rigor agreements. So I'm going to go back to our success criteria as always. By the end of this webinar, hopefully you should be able to understand why unwrapping our ELTs or our standards is such a critical step, the assessment process. That deconstructing that ELT, we identify the concepts and the skills to identify learning targets, and we then identify the rigor levels students must reach with our DOK chart. And again, for some of us, this is going to be brand new. Just asking everyone to practice and at least have an opportunity to come in to that day with having a chance to have done this. And I've created a document for every one of the teachers coming, as well as all the principals as well. And I'm going to encourage you to take one of the ELTs or standards from one of the teachers that are going to be there and unwrap it the same way, so you have a chance to practice and participate just as much as the teachers are coming in. As always, I'm very excited to see everyone next week. Any thoughts or questions coming in, please don't hesitate to send me an email, and I look forward to seeing everybody next Wednesday morning. Have a great rest of your week and a great weekend.